Hey, Victors, welcome to this week's Victory Show. If this is your first time being here, I'm Travis Cody, the author of 16 best-selling books, and I've helped hundreds of business owners, consultants, founders to write and publish their own best-selling books. And in my journey, I've discovered a fascinating pattern. A lot of businesses hit a revenue plateau, usually around $1 million. So on this show, I sit down with some of the world's most successful CEOs, leaders, business owners to uncover the strategies they use to overcome those plateaus and scale their businesses to new heights, and how you can do the same. So get ready for some deep insights and actionable takeaways that you can implement in your business and life starting today. So today's guest, he's a visionary real estate developer who's not just building homes, he's rebuilding communities. Treyvian Durr, who likes to go by Trey, is the founder of Durr Capital Group, a full-service real estate development and construction firm dedicated to revitalizing neighborhoods in Jackson, Mississippi, and Charlotte, North Carolina. Since launching in 2018, Trey has been on a mission to transform distressed properties into thriving homes and commercial spaces, all while creating opportunities for affordable housing and economic growth. Durr Capital Group specializes in acquiring and developing undervalued properties, turning them into high-quality housing for homebuyers, landlords, and commercial tenants. But beyond real estate, Trey is passionate about community impact, playing a key role in the renaissance of these cities and ensuring that growth benefits the people who live there. With a sharp eye for opportunity and a deep commitment to rebuilding neighborhoods, Trey is providing that real estate is more than just business. It's about legacy. So get ready for an insightful conversation on property development, community revitalization, and what it takes to really, truly create lasting impact. Trey, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having
Yep. But that word, I love that word, impact. There's I've had a lot of people on the show and people are doing great things in business, but impact doesn't come up with a lot of them. It's usually just a handful. Because most people they start a business for what? Revenue, to live a nice lifestyle, but it's generally that business only helps them and their family. And I love the fact that you've got a business that, yes, obviously is doing that for you, but it's also providing community growth. So we'll get into that, but let's talk a little bit about your story. I was joking around with you a little bit at the beginning of the call. Real estate is very much about, to me, it feels like the people that I know that are very successful with real estate is it sort of chose them somewhere in their life. They saw something and that they just got in on that and that became their thing. So walk me through that a little bit. So you're from Mississippi, McGee? Is it McGee, Mississippi?
you.
All right. So people don't realize how small that is. 4,000 people. So that's a small town. In England, that would be a village.
Right, right.
So you were 17, and how did you, at 17 years old, how did real estate even come onto your radar?
Yeah, so I was just on Facebook scrolling one day. Saw a guy post a fix and flip, and just look the fix and flip looked gorgeous. Actually on the street that I really actually knew, and messaged him, asked him could I actually come out and check the fix and flip out, and he told me just come on down. And I'll never forget after he told me, the renovations, purchase price, and then how much he actually made. I think that just really inspired me, just due to the fact that what he actually made in regards to profit was normally most people's salary in Mississippi.
For a full years. In one deal, he made a year's salary. So did he talk about how he did that at all? Or he was just like, this is what I did and it was cool. And what was it like from that point? Did you stay in touch with him or did you just go home and you're like, that's it. Like real estate this is the game I want to play.
Yeah, so I didn't really stay in touch with him too much after that. Just really, followed him on Facebook. But for me, just seeing that, I think that was enough for me to just spark my interest in real estate more so. And then just not even from I would say, profit standpoint, but also just realizing, he was changing his community. Like this street actually looked it better just due to the fact that, he fixed his property up and gave it to, some new homeowners, and it was affordable homes.
Mhm.
But it wasn't like he came in and just completely tried to make this house, $300,000 home. He really priced it affordably as well. So to me, that was just a win-win.
Yeah, so you give somebody an affordable home. You made the home gorgeous, which made the community nicer, and then you also made like a nice profit as well. That's what a fantastic, how can you argue with that model?
Yeah, you can't.
So where did you go from there? So you're still a senior in high school at this point. Did you think you were going to go to college and study real estate in college, or where did you head to from that point?
Yeah, so didn't think I was gonna study real estate in college. I kind of just, I would say, more so influenced my family to go to law school. So majored in pre-law and all that good stuff. I'll say my senior year, just realized after reading so much, I didn't think, law school was the best route for me.
4 years into it, you're like, I'm already tired.
So, still seeing this guy post at the time, on Facebook about real estate. So now I'm like, okay, he's been at this for 4 years. It has to work, right? I mean, and like I said, he did show me the profit he had made 4 years prior. So at this point, I just strategically was thinking like long term, how can I really get into real estate? Because I knew, you had to have the capital to actually purchase
Yeah.
these in the first place. You need to be a credit worthy applicant when you're going to these banks. So for me, I strategically thought, what is a good career for me to have, but also at the same time, travel the world a little. Really gain leadership experience as well, and I came to the conclusion to be an army officer. So I did that for 5 years.
That's interesting because usually people will do army and then go to college, and you did the backwards route.
Right, right, right. So I was doing Army ROTC also while I was in. Just I would say more so. I really enjoyed it. I really like working out as well. But I also knew I could go active duty at the end of everything if I was selected, which I got selected, and it's made a lot of sense for me from a salary standpoint as well at that time.
So so you're done with school and you're looking at the military. So you're looking around going, what are my options to be able to get 40, $50,000 in place that I could then invest my first real estate? And for you, the military, that was so salary made sense. And then at the time, obviously got a lot of stuff going on in the Middle East. Were you factoring in like, oh, if I deploy for 6 to 8 months, my bonus pay from that is going to be pretty decent?
Exactly.
Where did you end up going when you went did you tour?
Yeah, I went to Kuwait and Iraq, Union 3 specifically. A great deployment, learned a lot, well, and it was a great opportunity to serve my country.
Well, thank you for your service. You were definitely in the thick of it.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely was.
I know this is going to be a little bit off topic, but what was one or two big insights that you had living in either of those countries, just being in the Middle East and spending time there?
Yeah, I would say for me it was a big culture shock, I would say, especially just venturing off the base in Kuwait. From the food, women being covered up as well, shaking hands sometimes. It was definitely a culture shock.
Was Kuwait a little bit more friendly than Iraq?
Kuwait was more friendly. One of the other big things was the heat in Kuwait. I mean, it's almost like a microwave doing.
Really?
Yeah, it's just like you walk out, so you actually can't bear to be outside normally from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
That's really interesting. I did Egypt a couple of years ago, and we were there in the fall, and it was the temperature was like 105. Now I live in Vegas, so I'm coming from 115, 110, going 105, no big deal. It was so much hotter that even though it was 105, my brain is like, it's not this hot in Vegas. Then the other part of it was just stepping into the shade, how much quicker the temperature change was just in like going in the shade into direct sun. In Vegas, we don't have that. You're in the shade or in the sun, it's the same temperature. So your point to the sun feeling like a microwave, that's a really good point because as soon as you got out of it, the temperature dropped so much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was definitely yeah, pretty intense living there.
So you were there now this whole time you were there for the not there, but your 4 or 5 years, were you saving pretty much just shoveling all of your money into the side knowing that was going to be.
Yeah, so I was saving substantially. A lot of other officers, they were buying cars, just Amazon boxes for the other day. Every paycheck that I got, I was sending to my savings. I wasn't probably spending max maybe 250 a month.
Wow.
I was living on a thread. I was just eating at the defect and was only buying necessities things I actually needed. So
Well, first off, just the discipline to be able to do that, but it's also, from my perspective, the patience. Most people don't have the patience of going, I'm just going to chill for 3 or 4 years and put all my money, and then I will be able to. Most people, that 4 or 5 years seems just way too long for them to be able to do something like that. So, where did you get that discipline from? Is that just inborn? Did you get that from your parents? Something you learned?
I would say it's a mixture of it all. Really seeing my grandmother work so hard so early on in life. My great grandmother, she was a maid. My grandmother, when I was 7 years old, I was out in a pea field picking peas. So I feel like I've always been super disciplined, just hard working. A lot of kids at that time, they weren't doing jobs like that. For me, I was just always had a super hard work ethic, no matter what I was doing. But like I said, I really got it from my family, seeing them, help afford me opportunities that I, potentially wouldn't have had, even just from college. First
Sure.
year or two, I didn't have to work in college. My family just made me focus on college. Classmates at the time, they're working two, three jobs just to pay for tuition, but also, have money outside of paying for tuition as well to just have food some days. So for me, I realized my family did give me that luxury. So I really wanted to make sure every opportunity they gave me, I really, took advantage of them all.
Yeah. What a gift. So, walk me through your first real estate deal. You're out of the military, you got your money saved up. And one of the things we were talking about before I like to highlight is that when you were over in the Middle East, you were doing your shift, working out, and then you were studying, but the whole time you were just reading books on real estate.
Right. Yep. Yep. Yeah. I mean, reading those books, and it's weird to say this. A lot of people say you really have to have experience to, really execute really
Mhm.
well. Those books really just changed my thinking. Some of those books, I mean, everything that I read essentially has came true today. Some, in some type of form of fashion. My first deal was a duplex, and for me, my thought process was, why do people really buy, single families? I mean, let's say if the deal does mess up, right, and you have to put a tenant in place, you're still paying for one roof, one HVAC, all of those big items, right? A duplex or multifamily, I'm paying for one roof, one HVAC, but I'm getting two tenants, so I'm getting
Yeah.
two now. And that was my whole thought process going into real estate. A lot of people not think like that at all, but that was my thought process. And I was like, I'm going to bet all of my money on this strategy. I studied enough.
Now, did you get that from one of the books somewhere, or that just reading it?
Reading that book in detail. And to me, it made so much sense to take that approach and just execute that strategy. So my first deal was a duplex, and I'll never forget. But doing that duplex, I went and purchased it, and like I said, I got those two incomes, those two rental checks, and I had one mortgage. I'll never forget. After paying everything, taxes, insurance, specifically for that month, I had $650 remaining. I was like, okay.
600 a month in profit.
One. And I was like, if I buy 10 of these, I could be financially free. And
Yep.
this is in 2018 where everything went up. So,
Yep.
and I'm also in Mississippi still. I'm still living in Mississippi now. So everything's around me is super cheap. And I still have majority of those savings that I had. So I just, first,
Schwarzenegger, in his book Total Recall, he talked about he got interested in real estate because he was a bricklayer, and he ended up doing some walls for the same guy, like 5 different houses, and he was like, how does this guy have 5 houses? And that guy told him about real estate, and so he went to college and studied about that. But he was saying that the same thing. I'm watching all my friends, and they're saving up their money, and then they're buying their first house. And he's like, and I saved up the same amount of money, and I bought a 4 unit apartment building. He's like, I paid the same amount they did. He's like, but now I lived for free, and the other three covered the mortgage. And a year later, an investor came and offered me money that was at a profit, and so he sold it. And with the profit, he went and bought a 12 unit apartment building, and then sold that, and then he went to a 36 unit, and then 8 years later, he owned half of Main Street on Santa Monica.
it's actually very simple. You just have to have the discipline, the vision as well to execute.
So, all right. So that was your taste of it. So where did you go? Where did you go from there? And at what point did you decide that it was time to make your own capital group from that? So was the first 5 or 6 years you were just buying individual properties?
Yeah, so I would say the first 2 years I was just buying individual properties. So I did, like I said, did the duplex, and right after that I did a fourplex. After the fourplex, I did an eightplex. So I was whatever I was buying. For me, I was just doubling the size each time. It made more sense for me to buy them and keep them for a year, then sell, because I knew I could grow quicker that way versus just buying and holding. The one thing about real estate, you'll always find deals, but you'll always run out of capital as well, no matter how big you get. And that's when you even look at these guys, that are billionaires. At the end of the day, they still use debt because it makes more sense to be able to leverage, because it's just too much real estate out there. You'll never be able to buy all of it without either selling or leveraging more. So for me, the easiest thing was just to sell more, and also protecting my downsides, because a lot of deals I was purchasing with cash or 50% LTV loan at the same time. So for me, it made a lot of sense just to grow organically like that. So yeah, I did all that in Mississippi in 20 2019, I would say more to the end of 2019, that's when I came to Charlotte. And as you know, that's when the world, essentially a year after that, real estate prices just, went pretty.
How many properties did you have in your portfolio when that all happened?
I had 55 then, and when I was moving to Charlotte, and I sold
So the start of 2020, you had around 50 properties
and I sold all of those.
during that following year, or just
Yeah, I would say during that following year, and midway through. Because for me, I also realized that I felt like Mississippi was more so on a downward spiral. I felt like Charlotte was one of those cities. It was a bigger city, but not a major city. And I felt like a lot of people would eventually really want to move there as well.
yeah,
At the same time, they had a real estate development school that I found out about.
really?
Win for me. I wanted to go to real estate development school to learn more, really
Sure.
grow my knowledge base. And at the same time, I was going to move to a great city. Because when I look at opportunities, I think if you can park yourself in the right city, you can really amplify your life and amplify your opportunities. Because you're
Yeah.
right people, but you're also in a city that has great economic growth at the same time. So that was super important to me. I mean, someone being in New York in the 70s and 80s, just the right place, the right time. So
Yeah.
to me, that was a big turning point economically looking at Charlotte.
So for people listening to this who may not understand what the difference between a real estate investor and a real estate developer is, you want to walk them through that?
Yeah, so a real estate investor is more so someone who, just buys properties, fix and flip some, buys rentals as well. Their main goal is, they could be a doctor or a lawyer, but they want to park their money in a real estate majority of the time. And they're normally trying to be more so passive investors versus an active investor. Real estate developer is primarily an active investor, and that's someone that they could, take a piece of land, get it entitled, and actually build on it. When I say build on it, they could build a single family house, they could build a duplex, or they could build an apartment complex. Just depends on that developer's niche.
Slightly different risk profiles.
The risk to reward is definitely greater in both as well. The developer is more high stakes, I would say, at the end of the day.
So what is it about the development that's appealing to you that you're really liking?
A lot of people don't understand development. It's almost like a foreign language. It takes time to become a good developer, but it also takes time to even get into development. There's so many roadblocks, I would say as well. Even from a government standpoint, every state is different, every city is different. So you really have to, understand what you're getting yourself into with development, have mentors, have sponsors. It's a lot that goes into development, but the first thing I think you need to have is the knowledge, right? And for me, that was my main reason going to development schools. I read on development all day.
Was that like a year-long program?
Correct. Program. And it was phenomenal to get in that program. I actually met my business partner in that program.
Oh, really?
We've done a lot together.
So was most of the people in the development program, were they all real estate investors that had some success and were like, how do I get to the next level? Or was there just some people going like, I want to start at the ground and work my way up?
Great question. Great question. I would say it was maybe 64 and 60 were just trying to get into real estate. And the other 40% were already in real estate. They're really looking for those, mentorship. Because a lot of our professors, were, doing really great things. And then the real estate program that I was a part of, we had a board of directors. And the board of directors, within Charlotte, they were, the largest firms, the CEOs of the largest firms.
Wow.
Being, I'm 25, being able to send an email to a CEO at a super enormous REIT, and he responds back to me in 5 minutes and say, let's go get lunch tomorrow. So for me, that having to access that network was also a critical point, and I would say my trajectory in growing my real estate company as well.
Yeah. So what is this last 4 years after you sold everything off, went through roulette, like what does the last 4 years look like from you now? Have you still continued to do what you're doing with the investing, and now the development is an arm of that you're going after like bigger projects? Or
Great question. I would say now we're the development is definitely arm, more so developing single families for the most part. Looking at a few apartment complexes, but the environment we're in right now has definitely made that more difficult with interest rates as high as they are.
Yeah.
So kind of scale back a little, make sure that we're very risk averse on our this next year, I would say definitely just 2025 right now. But the last 4 years, we definitely developed. We focus on commercial properties, also like retailing. We still been focusing on retail and office. Still a lot of single family flips, but our main focus has been acquiring apartment complexes versus developing apartment complexes. Right now, just from a replacement cost standpoint, it makes more sense to go to try and go
Buy something.
Yeah, because we can buy a 7 cap or we can build a 5 cap. But while we build a 5 cap, we can buy a 7 cap.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a couple of people on the show that they're really smart business guys, but they've all admitted that, like, I don't like to build stuff from scratch. They're like, they go identify smaller companies they can buy because they know they can build them and then they'll sell them. And they're like, it's so much faster just to buy something already running than it is to try to build from scratch. So that's funny that that's even in the real estate niche. So as you've gone along this process, like at what point did you, I'm assuming you have a team now that's working for you. And what did that look like as you start to realize, like, oh, wow, like I need to start developing a team here. And this is like, we've gone beyond just a real estate investor to now you have this, a capital group and you've got a business you're building.
Yeah, I would say, and it was so hard for me to let go. I would say that was probably one of the hardest things about me really realizing, okay, you're a CEO now. You can't do everything yourself. You have to.
But it sounds like you really love getting in the dirt and getting into numbers, though, too. That sounds like it's a.
Yeah, that's been I've always loved that thought. Like I've always just loved.
There's a word for that for those guys. They're called nerds.
It was always, I just enjoyed the work. But I think I realized that after we bought a script center, and I just realized I couldn't do it all by myself. And it was, ironically, a majority of my employees now that work for me, they reached out to me. Like I never went out and recruited Indeed or anything. They actually reached out to me and was saying, hey, it's similar to how I got in real estate myself, reaching out, seeing someone on social media and, just DMing them and messaging them, asking them, hey, I see what you're doing. How can I help? Can I learn from you? Some type of way I want to be involved. And that's essentially how I got all of my employees. And my first employee, she reached out, and was asking, could she help? And I'm like, okay, that may be, a good idea. Let me just, see. And bringing her on, I mean, it took away, I would say, like, so many of the tasks that I was actually doing. I would say around 35% of workload that I had. So that freed me up. Now I can, focus more on the acquisition side again and not get bogged down with these other tasks. And that's when I think a light bulb went off in my head. This is how I strategically would grow. More people that can do some of these other things, but people that are skilled at doing them and that want to do them as well.
So what's been a couple of the, I guess, challenges you've had stepping away from being an investor into CEO? And at the same time, what are one or two big lessons that you've had along that path?
That's a great question. I would say the big lessons. Big lessons is, number one, you can't do everything yourself. You have to rely on other people, but not only rely on them, trust in other people that they will get the job done. If you hire the right people, they will perform well. I was reading Steve Jobs' his autobiography, but also Jim Collins' Good to Great. And one of the big things, and specifically in Jim Collins' book, he talked about and referenced was, just hiring great people. When you hire great people, micromanaging, constantly, tell them how to do things. If you hire them for a reason.
Yeah.
Get out of their way and let them work. And that was probably, I would say, the biggest lesson I learned.
Did you have a tendency to micromanage a little bit in the beginning?
Definitely did. And I think from my military leadership background, in the military, they always say trust but verify, right? So I was checking up on people, even though they told me they did something, I would still follow up. Like, and you don't really realize that by being in the military, then making that transition, right? Because in the military, you just tell people to do something, and that's it. Like, there's no.
You don't wonder if they did it or not. You just assume that it's done,
So, and, also hiring my employees, I would tell them to do something and I would expect it to be done exactly like I said, but, they'll send me an email and it's not done like I said. It's done better than I said.
Oh, wow.
More efficient. So for me, that was a hard lesson to learn, to allow people to be themselves and let them win the day themselves.
This is going to be an odd comparison, but that was a big lesson that I had when I was in Hollywood, when I was producing and I directed a couple of things. And I'm very clear in my vision and you're directing, like, I'm going to do this thing. So there was a time I just hit burnout, And I went to the editors and I told the editors, I'm like, just, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I want to try to see it. You guys do it. And the next day I came back and I was watching the dailies, and what they had edited was so much better than what I had envisioned that I was like, oh, maybe that's why these guys are editors. And like it was such a realization of going, oh man, if I just let these guys go free, like, they end up with something that was so much like 10 times better than my was. Now I know in certain jobs, right, it's not always the case. Sometimes you got to get somebody on board, but the fact that you had that experience is that guy can make you feel good too with your company and your employees, knowing that that's going to be the end result. So what is the next 5 years look like for the Durr Capital Group? What are your guys' kind of big visions, and where are you headed?
Yeah, so I would say our big vision is really to partner with the city. We're most likely going to get a lot of funding support from the city. We actually received funding support last year, but now we're really going to
Specifically to do like affordable housing development?
what
Mm.
about housing development? That's what I really want to focus on, looking at just from I won't even say a strategic standpoint, but ensuring that we give back to the community, right? I think that is super important. And just looking at Charlotte inflation as well, that we have to allow people to have access to affordable homes.
Yeah.
That's super big for me. So I would say that's number one. Number two, also focusing outside of Charlotte too, like Greensboro, North Carolina. That's another a great area, but it's an area that also is suffering from
Yeah.
rising costs as well. So we really want to focus on Greensboro, North Carolina. And number three, I would say we also really want to start looking into just more single family home developments outside of the apartment complex acquisitions that we focused on the last 3 or 4 years. We feel like single family homes are definitely going to be needed, especially in certain metros. With homes now, we realize there are a lot of homes that are super outdated, smaller as well in Charlotte. So building homes for families, young people, but families that actually need these homes. So that'll be another one of my folks to really
I
focus.
love it. So if somebody's listening to this and they either want to get involved with what the Durr Capital Group is doing, or maybe they were where you were at when you were 17, they're seeing you on social media. How do they get involved with what you do, and how do they connect with you? LinkedIn, I'm assuming.
Yeah, LinkedIn for sure. Is Treyvian there. Instagram is Treyvian C_, and those are mainly, I'll probably say, the best social media to contact me. And our website also, they can fill out a form on Durr Capital.
Awesome. Well, I like to end every conversation with three questions, or just rapid fire. If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. If I had to give myself my younger self advice, I would say dream and outwork everyone. I think I saw a quote not too long ago, and it was more so just really specifically saying that, let's say if I meet a guy, he's on a treadmill, and we know he can, he's a marathon runner. Let's say he's on a treadmill and he's just running away. I mean, not a drip of sweat, and I'm on a treadmill as well. I think the big thing for me to do is not to quit. I mean, I can die on that treadmill, but as long as I don't give up, I think that's one of the most important things that you need to instill in yourself in your early days. You just never giving up, never quitting, because in business you will fail eventually, but when you fail, you have to pick yourself up.
I love it. I saw a quote one time that I thought was really interesting, where it was talking about the different speeds of animals, and like how humans are in the scheme of the animal kingdom are so slow and squishy, like pretty much everything could eat us. But there's not an animal on the planet that can walk longer than a human can. And so they're saying everybody gets all caught up on the sprinting and the whatever. And they're like, but the reality is, if you just keep walking, there's no other animal on the planet that will be able to keep up with you, because they'll eventually get tired and have to stop, and humans can keep walking. And I thought about that. I'm like, that is actually true. So it's not necessarily about the speed. It's about the staying power. It's about just the consistency of just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Right.
So what belief or mindset shift has had the biggest impact on your success and your happiness?
Yeah, I would say for just in regards to mindset shift, just really confidence, believing in myself, really believing in myself. I think, one of the big things I do is now I get up, 5 a.m. in the morning, and I visualize my life, and I write out my goals as well. but I write out, that I was going to be successful. I've been doing that the last 4 or 5 years. Eventually you talk to yourself, you write out your goals and your dreams. Eventually you'll believe in it, right? And then it'll also happen.
I love it. That's fantastic. I think people definitely underestimate the power of writing things down for sure. The final question is, what's the best investment you've ever made in yourself?
The best investment I've made in myself, probably just two things, and they're really really small things. Just a great gym membership. Is ones I think people really don't realize. Like, you can make as much money in the world, but health is one of the most important things out there, right? Like really taking care of your and not just your body, but your mental well being too. So even like the app talk space, being able to talk to someone just about mental health mentally. So I would say those, from a health standpoint and mental standpoint, and then number two, just eating right as well. Invested in a chef also, and just having meal preps every week versus eating junk.
Makes a big difference, doesn't it?
So completely 360. For me, I feel like I'm more focused. I feel better as well. So those two things, they're very small things and things that don't really look into or think they matter. But I mean, they're such a big return on investment in regards to investing in yourself and trying to be a better you.
I love it. One of my main mentors, he told me this story when he'd sold his first business and became a multimillionaire. And he was young. He was in his mid 30s. And he said it was funny because he lived in a building in Dallas. It was like a 30-story high rise. And there was a maintenance guy there. They always saw him. He's there every day. And after he sold his company, he was getting ready to move out. And he actually discovered that the maintenance man was the guy who owned the building. And he had started as a maintenance guy and had started building and slowly, until he had this high rise. So when he went up to the guy the last day he was there and said, "Hey, I understand, you're really successful in business, and I just sold my business, and I'm just wondering if you have any." He said the guy was in his 70s. He's like, "Do you have any advice for a young pup like me?" And he said the guy took the mop and leaned on the mop and looked at him and said, "Son, you spend a third of your life on your feet and a third of your life sleeping. So don't ever go cheap on your shoes and don't go ever cheap on your mattress, right?" And I'm going to add, Jim and the chef, and you're all set. Trey, thanks so much for your time today. It's been a fantastic conversation.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Cheers.